Our Horsebox studio almost steered itself into Stockton Hall today to speak to our guest for April the 1st. Nobody's fool, Oliver Greenall.
Written up in the racing press as an up-and-coming trainer, who together with his now co-trainer, Josh Guerriero, and a young team at Stockton he takes great pride in, combines the art of training winners with giving his owners the involvement and enjoyment of the sport, which is the race lover's dream. As we record, he has trained 30 winners so far this season.
He was the men's national point-to-point champion 2007 and 8 with 56 winners, also a past Amateur Jockeys Association title holder under rules, where he wrote a total of 78 winners, 42 in one season.
It says it all that he has given us this time at the pinnacle of the jump racing calendar between the Cheltenham Festival and the Aintree Grand National Meeting, and we're so looking forward to chatting to him.
Well, welcome, Ollie. Your childhood was steeped in horses and hunting. Did you always want to become a trainer?
No, not necessarily. I always hunted, obviously, with my three brothers and my mum and dad. Loved hunting, loved riding, but it wasn't always something I would really want to do. I loved farming more than anything, really. We had a dairy farm at home and I used to go milking whenever I could in the holidays, and that was probably what I wanted to do, really. But as I went through my career as a jockey, I actually realised that probably training was more and more the bit I enjoyed about the riding. I kept going along the farming line, went to agricultural college, enjoyed the farming, and then I moved to Malpas and I farmed and I trained pointer pointers. But it was then that I realised that really the training was a lot more enjoyable, really.
When you were doing all your riding with your brothers, you went through Pony Club, did you? Which Pony Club did you?
So with the Sir Watkins Williams Pony Club. Yeah, but we didn't really... We did it a bit. We didn't do rallies or anything like that.
Did you do camp?
We always did camp, yeah.
I can't imagine... in the rides, do you remember being a leading file or back marker or, were you in a ride with your brothers or different ages?
No, we were different. We were 2 years apart, so we were always in different ones. But there were about, 8 or 10 boys out of the sort of probably 40 girls. So we had a good group. Obviously, Oscar was a little bit younger than me, but I think he was in my ride one year. And then we had sort of James Holloway, Harry Martin, Felix Paston. It was a good team, and we had fun. We didn't, they were pretty good to us. We didn't have to do much dressage or anything like that.
Didn't you enjoy the dressage, Ollie?
No, not really.
You had all the girls rushing around, clattering your horses for you.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I can't say I was sort of competitive enough to want to do it to a high level.
So you never did an event?
No, I did one. I always wanted to be a show jumper. And so Dad let me have a lesson with Keith Shaw once, which didn't go very well. We ended up shouting each other, and I walked. I think I walked off in a huff. And then we used to have Warrington Show on the land, so I took my pony. I tapped my own pony up one day, got out the field, went to Warrington Show, got eliminated
in the show jumping.
Yeah. And Dad said, "I don't think this is for you," and I said, "Yeah, I don't think it's for me." So that was my.
How interesting. What about it? A gap year? Did you go off and do any riding in that?
No, not really. Just went just did jockeying, really. So when I was 17, Dad very kindly got me a pointer, and so I rode that when I was at school. And then when I gap year, I went and worked for Mick Easterby then for the whole winter.
I thought I read somewhere that you played a bit of polo.
I went to work in Buenos Aires for 3 months. Yeah, but we weren't allowed to play. We weren't even allowed to ride on the grass. No, we just exercised on a sand ring.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't sound much fun.
No. We had fun, but no, the actual riding wasn't much fun.
So after your very short show jumping career, you started pointer pointing, won the men's national pointer point championships in 2006 and 2008. Is that
yes.
right?
Yeah.
With a record 56 winners. Tell us about the highs and lows of your pointer pointing career.
Yeah, the pointer pointing was fantastic, really. So obviously that's what I started doing. Thomas, my older brother, was riding on the track all the time. So I rode pointing. We had Dad very lucky. We had some nice horses, and I worked for Mick Easterby, and his son David had a lot of nice horses. So every weekend we'd be going up to Yorkshire, 2 or 3 rides, and they'd always be well schooled, and they did well, and it worked really well, to be honest. So we had a lot of fun, and then at the end of the year we'd always go to Devon for the last 3 weeks, take all the horses down there, and that was always good fun. We'd stay down. And
So who were your main rivals on the circuit at that
so
stage?
main rivals were sort of Will Biddick, who now has become a very good friend, and he's still riding pointing actually. Who else was there? Richard Wallacott, sort of Richard Burton. He was just coming to the end, really. Well, no, he was still riding when I was riding, but he wasn't riding as much. Sam Whaley Cohen. But yeah, no, it was great fun. But what I wanted to do was do it, full time, get fit, enjoy it, for probably a short time. Whereas some amateurs sort of like to do another job and then do it a bit. Whereas I enjoyed the riding more when I was riding regularly and was fit, and so that's what I did really.
So your entry into racing came very much through the point-to-point circuit and things. Do you think that's still possible today? Is that still a good grounding and
yeah, definitely
it's popular?
Yeah, definitely. I think what we see really as trainers now is that the people who've ridden, hunting, eventing, from a show jumping from a young age definitely have an advantage.
Yeah.
And then people either
like Rachel Blackmore.
Yeah. A lot. Well, yeah, I'd say 90% of the good jump jockeys have been riding at some level before. But yeah, point to point, it was good. It's quite hard for someone with no connection and not lucky enough to have a dad who's going to get them a horse. It's quite hard to get into point to pointing, really, to be honest. I was lucky. I wasn't, like I say, I wasn't shouting at dad to get me a horse. He, one came about and had a ride, and I was third, and then I enjoyed it, so I kept going. Whereas,
like farming, really, hard to get into without.
Yeah, it's hard. I think most people, you have to just go and work in a yard, and you're probably more likely to get a ride on the track, really, and hope in an amateur race probably, and do it that way.
Yeah, and all that cross-country experience is your sort of fifth leg, isn't it? That is something that can't be taught.
Gives you
Yeah,
something
definitely.
extra.
Definitely.
What about Steve? Steve Wins obviously played a big part in your...
Yes, yeah. So Steve was obviously a very good jockey, rode a lot for Henry Daly, and while he was injured, he used to come home to sort of near Threepwood. And so I think Dad then saw him out hunting and sort of got to know him a bit. And then I think when he decided he wanted to give up racing, Dad sort of thought, well, he could rent Stockton office. So he rented Stockton office for 10 years and trained from there. And Dad used to have a couple of horses with him. And so I used to go and ride out for him and got to know him pretty well and rode in races on these horses. When he decided he wanted to stop training and I moved there, he stayed and looked after my dad's horses and was a massive help in sort of teaching me, about the gallops, about the area, finding a farrier, finding a vet, finding staff.
It's been a good long-term partnership, hasn't it? The two families, really.
Yes.
It all dovetails in now, doesn't it, with Poppy and Toby, and
Yeah.
it's worked really well.
It's worked really well. So Steve was a big help, and then even now, just when I was coming here, he was using the gallops. They've got a few pointers, so no, it's fantastic. They've actually moved down the road now and have their own yard, but we still see a lot of them.
So to be a trainer, you have to fulfil a lot of training yourself, don't you, and go and be accredited or whatever. So is that a good grounding? I mean, what would you say they taught you? You already knew a lot, but what did that training give you? What was the best lesson that it taught you?
Well, so, I mean, the main lesson is probably working for other people. So I did 8 years with Mick Easterby, and then I went and did a summer with Sir Mark Prescott. And
but don't you have to do a sort of jockey?
Yeah, so
thing?
you have to do 3 weeks in Newmarket, but that's more the sort of administration side, the sort of legal stuff. All the health and safety. It's probably it's all the classroom stuff that you need to know, obviously, but it's not how to actually train.
Ticking the boxes.
It's all the ticking boxes, really. And the main thing, then you have to have an interview. It's quite a strict process to actually get your license, but the majority of that is your references and your knowledge and your experience, really.
So you have to have an interview to pass.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I think we just did it like a over the phone interview, but you have to put in a lot of the application's pretty big and hefty, yeah. Just so you can explain that you're not going to do anything wrong and bring racing into disrepute.
Yeah, they trust you.
Yeah, it's a responsible job.
So you rode a total of 78 winners under rules, with 42 in one season. It's got a very impressive record. What would you say you were most proud of looking back?
Yeah, I think that really. So I did point pointing first, which I loved. Quirky tracks, good group of mates. Really enjoyed it. And sort of once you've ridden the tracks a few times, I think you have an edge because they're quite difficult. Difficult to ride. So that was really fun. But then when Thomas gave up riding the rules, there was an opportunity to me to be first jockey for McEasterby. So I did that, and it was a nice change. On the track, you have to be a lot sharper. Everything happens a lot quicker. Obviously, the people you're riding against are a lot better. So one little mistake, or you're a little bit late with a decision, you know about it. So it was a good swap. But like I said before, I just did it for 2 years and did 2 full seasons. And so I think I finished 9th in the jockeys table when I had the 42 winners. So, and that's probably what I'm most proud of, to be honest.
So Mick Easterby comes over really well on the social media, and a lot of people, I know Mary Wynne Jones, she loves listening to his stories. And can you remember any funny things? He's a quite big character.
Yeah, he is a character. And every day he was always in good form, really. Always give you loads of responsibility. And he used to he's a character, and he with owners sometimes he sort of we'd have to do role play. So he'd say in the morning, he'd say, right, I've got an owner coming at 11 o'clock and he wants to buy this horse. He said, you've got to ride it. Then I'm going to tell you that this owner is going to buy the horse, and you have to pretend that you really want your dad to buy the horse. So he says, I want you to take your hat off and slam your stick down, and then storm off. And I'd say, right, okay, I'll do that. He's like, no, we need to do it now. Practice. So we have to practice.
Yeah.
All sorts and it would all be, he'd have a laugh, and it was a different way of training. But he was good fun, and he'd.
And that attracts a lot of owners, that sort of fun and character and.
Yeah. And, if the owners came, they'd have a good time, and they're open. And
do you think it's got tamer? Would he get away with some of the things that he did perhaps 20 years ago in this day and age?
No, I don't. And actually, he's with the social media, to be honest, I'm surprised. He's done really. I couldn't imagine him to have done that when I was there. David, his son, has a big role as well. So I think between them they have. But yeah, he's probably had to.
Calm down
a bit, yeah.
Can you tell us about any particularly hairy moments that you remember?
When I was riding?
Yes.
I had some nasty falls. Sort of Cheltenham one day, I was riding the Pertemps final, and I thought I was going pretty well, just coming down the final bend, and Chuck Thornton cut across me, and I got unseated and lacerated my liver and punctured my lung and broke 3 ribs. That wasn't very nice. But it was quite funny because we went into Cheltenham Hospital, and a race after, Paul Carberry got injured, and he came in, and he'd done similar. And no, it wasn't. It was the day after. I was in on the Tuesday, he was in on the Wednesday. So it came to Friday, and they were taking my catheter out, taking my drain out. They said, you can go home. And he was still in. And he said, I really want to go to the jockeys party after the last race on the Friday. And he was still, so he took his own catheter out. Good. And they'd taken his drain out. He took his own catheter out, and he took all his needles
Cannulas
out. And just got up and got in the taxi with me. And we got to the course, and I had somebody picking me up, and he said, you coming to the jockeys party?
Did you go?
No. I was exhausted.
You didn't feel up to it?
No. He's mad. He is mad.
Goodness.
That sounds fun, the jockeys party.
Yeah.
What finally made you decide to retire from competing yourself?
So when I started training, I rode as well. But like I was saying before, once you've ridden a sort of high level, which I thought I had, and you were fit and you were hungry and doing it all the time, once I'd started training, my focus had switched really, and I just wasn't enjoying the ride anymore. I wasn't as fit. I just wasn't seeing strides the same. I wasn't making the right decisions. And it was just too much trying to go to the races with horses, speak to owners. So I just decided really I'd stop riding. I'd sort of done everything I wanted to do, and I actually enjoyed watching the horses, somebody else doing the job really.
You're seeing it through different eyes, really, aren't you?
Yeah. And it was frustrating to start with because I was sort of couldn't find jockeys at times. I thought, well, if I could have ridden it. But once I'd made the decision, I was happy, really.
So around here, there are far fewer points than there used to be. How do you think this is going to affect pointing long term, sort of thing?
Yeah, so that was the hard thing for me, really. As I went on through the years, the points were getting less and less, sadly. And I just think, hopefully the hunts that have got the points on now will keep them going. But, it's a shame, the Winstead and Flinterdale only have one between them. Cheshires don't have one. There's so many hunts in this area that either have half or don't even have one. So it just means that everybody has to travel, really. But so I think in this area, you think the pointing is going to die. But then you go to Yorkshire, you go to southwest of the country, and they're thriving. They're getting more and more new tracks and stuff. So I think it is very sort of area dependent.
Does that to do with the ground, the heavy ground? Or
I don't know. I think historically, Dad has always said that in sort of areas where hunting has been more difficult and hasn't been as good, pointing has been stronger. But I don't know whether it's such a massive dependency on volunteers that whether in this area we're not as good at volunteering. I don't know really. They take a lot of manpower and a lot of risk. I think they can cost sort of
insurance is a big thing, isn't it? When they have to be cancelled, that was. I think
some points can sort of cost like 40,000 to put on, and you might only make 50. So it's a lot of risk.
How were you at making the weight? In your
I was okay. I'm only 5'8", so I wasn't too bad. Just be a bit careful what I ate and did plenty of exercise. But I only did 10 stone twice. I used to do about sort of 10.5, and that was about me really.
So now you're obviously back on the food whenever you want it. How is your cooking?
My cooking is average, I'd say. I can cook. I do a good Sunday roast. But my wife is quite picky, so she tends to do all the cooking.
Which roast is your?
I can do any.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I probably buy the Yorkshires. I do the roasts from scratch. It was pretty basic stuff. I used to cook myself. When Jess first moved in with me, she pretended she couldn't cook, so I used to do it all, and then suddenly she could cook.
Now, at Stockton Hall, you've obviously developed the facilities a lot. What changes have you made since you've been there?
So when Dad first bought it, it was a dairy farm, and so then they did a lot initially. So they turned the cubicle sheds into stables and put a gallop in, and then since I've been there, we've put another gallop in. We've got a sort of jumping lane on the all-weather surface. What else we've got? Like a school. Yeah, we've got loads of things: accommodation, office, more stables, walkers.
How much do you think the sort of natural topography helps as a backdrop with the horses? Like Ginger McCain used the beach. Are you able to use the sort of banks and the water?
Yeah, I think historically Cheshire probably hasn't been a sort of famous training area because it lacks the hills probably. But I think as training has developed, I don't think that is necessarily the be on and end all. I mean, so if you go to Lambourne, that's like the ideal sort of place to train national hunt horses. But having said that, there's plenty of trainers that don't train in those areas who do well. In Ireland, for instance, Willie Mullins doesn't have a hill. So I think, although I think you can train a horse harder on a hill without getting the injuries, I think we cope fine. We've got a really good deep sand loop. We've got a nice hill gallop that it could be stiffer and it could be longer in an ideal world, but you have to work what you've got, and it seems to work well. But where we are lucky, like you say, is just having the Wych Valley is a beautiful area, but also for the horses we can for the day before they run and the day after they run, they always go down the banks and go and stand in the stream. We've made a sort of half a mile sort of strip where they can go into the stream, walk along the stream and out. and then they canter all up the hills back, which is going to be
That's
good,
a
good
huge,
for them.
a huge resource. So to get a hunter ready, they always say 6 weeks walking and you do let the legs hard. Is that the same for your horses?
So we always say 3 months. So it's the first, that's from grass. So they go out, all our horses that are in now will go out 1st of May, depending on the ground. So the 1st of May, 2nd week of May, they go out in the field. And they'll come back in 2nd week in July. So they have a good 2 months in the field. They'll come back in and they'll do 2 weeks walking, 2 weeks trotting. We try and go around the roads on them. It just depends what they're like. They can be quite fresh. We probably have 18, 20 in a string, and you can cause more problems. So we just depend. They'll either go on the walker or we'll ride them in the school and trot them. So they do a month walking, trotting, month cantering, and a month fast work, and then they're ready.
When you ride them and school them, I imagine that is quite it must be quite lively. But I've watched some of your YouTube videos, and at Kelsall, you get on them, and they're as good as gold going round the donut at the bottom and up the hill. And I thought, goodness me, for racehorses, they were beautifully behaved. I mean, they're mostly all, when you're in a group, they're
I think
manageable.
Some people think of thoroughbreds and think they're lunatics, but as long as they're in routine and they're doing plenty of exercise, they're fine. I mean, it's like with any, probably out of the 70 horses we've got, there are 10%, 7 are lunatics, and the rest are fine.
And what about the retraining of racehorses? Do you get involved in that?
So we do. All our horses, which is good really. 9 times out of 10, the horses will jump around the farm every week. So sort of 2 days a week they're slow cantering, 2 days a week they're fast cantering, and the other days they're either jumping or they're going around the farm. So then when we do come to sell them, they're relatively easy. Poppy Wynn, who's Steve's daughter, Toby's sister, she takes them off us, and then she does sort of probably 2 or 3 weeks just in the school, just get them going, taking pictures, videos, and then she'll sell them. And we just take a nominal fee, and then she gets what she can. So that works really well, because it's just having the time to get the proper videos, and she's quite good at finding them the right home and having the people coming and trying them, and it's quite a lot of work, but she does it really well.
Well, it's great that they have another life after racing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say, and that's a misnomer that they don't. And I'd say 95% of our horses would go to nice homes.
Ollie, you like to use as many local suppliers as possible.
Yeah, so actually it was a bit of a random sort of happening. We always got our feed from Spillers, which is made near Melton Mowbray. A local supplier called H.G. Leoaks had bought out Warthouses, which is in Mulpus, and they approached us, and we trialled the feed 2 years ago. So for last season, the first year with it, and the horses ran really well, looked fantastic. So it was just a win-win really. It was made in Mulpus. They're really, really good at sort of tweaking things. If we want to change the actual recipe of the feed, they will, and really amenable. And it just comes from down the road. So that's
good for carbon footprint.
Yes. Yeah, so Paul Corbett, we buy all the rest of our stuff off. So that's in Mulpus as well. And he's fantastic. So we got all our straw from there, shavings, and all the other supplements and stuff.
Yeah, big thumbs up for Corbett's.
Yeah.
We use them as well.
And what about Stockton Hall sustainability?
Sort of all the horses that are in the barns, sort of the youngsters and horses that are on holiday, they're on straw. So that goes straight on the land. Everything else is on shavings. I started on straw, but I found they ate it a lot, and it is pretty dusty and inconsistent. So we're on shavings, virgin shavings, which is dust free, which obviously is very hard to get back onto the land. So what we do is we put it straight into the cattle as cattle bedding, and that gets broken down by the cows using it as bedding. And obviously, and then at the end of the year, then that gets taken out and put on all the maize ground. So nothing's burnt. It all goes back into the land and is ploughed in the land.
Brilliant. This is your 5th season with a full licence, and Josh Guerriero, I said it, who you rode against many times, is joining you with a dual licence. Tell us about how you divide your roles.
Yeah, so very lucky that I found Josh. He'd worked at Dan Skelton's for 3 years previous, setting Dan up from nothing. So it was great to sort of to have that. And training's all about routine. It's all about having a system in place. And having worked at McEasterby's and St Mark Prescott's, two very, very different yards, I did find it very difficult to find that routine and find that balance, really, because neither of them I sort of wanted to train like,
So Mark Prescott is flat training.
So Mark Prescott's flat, yeah, and in Newmarket, which is sort of quite a different way you have to train. McEasterby's sort of totally the other way, sort of 100 horses, 15 members of staff, and everything's done properly, but it's just, I wanted to be somewhere in the middle probably. So when Josh came, we went with Dan Skelton, which was the Paul Nicholls way, and it's worked really well. It's a good system, and so then when Josh came, we worked together for a bit, and then after a while we decided that we had to have our own separate roles, because training is very opinion based. There's no real right answers, so you need to have one man that's going to make a decision. And that's what we did. So Josh predominantly trains the horses. He's on the yard 24/7. He's working out what the horses are going to do every day. The entries and where the horse is going to run, we do more together, but I'd say he has the final say on that as well. And then I'm on the road, really, going racing, looking after owners, sourcing the horses, and just doing the business side, really, ordering all the feed and equipment. And it just works really well.
You must enjoy the owners, really. It must be a very interesting part of your job to meet lots of people from all over the world.
Yeah, I do. And, when I started,
horses are like a common denominator with so many cultures
Yeah.
and so many people.
Yeah, I do enjoy that. It just having gone from farming to training, it was never my initial thought that I was going to then be looking after people. So it's actually very different to what I thought training was going to be. But, 9 times out of 10, they're lovely people. They've got interesting stories. And, if you can normally tell with quite, after the first few weeks, months, if you're going to get on or not. And, I've trained for quite a lot of people since I started, and it's nice, yeah.
It's about entertainment, isn't it?
It's about entertainment, yeah. So, we have 90% syndicates,
And that involves a lot more people into racing, gives a lot more people a chance to be part of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's the syndicate's idea.
The actual time on the race course is such a small part of the horse's life. Our job is to make sure that as an owner, you enjoy the whole experience, and the when it wins or, runs well on the race course, that's just the pinnacle. But a lot of the other bits is fun as well.
How much, social media is an essential part of everything you do. How much does that sort of help or hinder you?
Yeah, we have a marketing team that we pay to do the website, and they help us with all the social media, and it's obviously very good. Until recently, I never used to sell a share on it. I was always a bit anti, and now we probably do sell a few more shares, and we get. But it's probably not actually about selling the share. It's just generally people seeing us and seeing our success and just
wanting to be part of it.
Yeah, without knowing. But then it has a bad side as well. We had on Sunday we had a 4-1 on shot get beat, so we'd probably get 10 to 15 messages on there, and we'd probably get 5 or 6 emails. Having a go about that. So, but obviously that's just life.
You mentioned the Racing Manager app. That must help.
Yeah, so because I say we 90% syndicate, so I think we have sort of roughly 70 horses. I think we have 290 owners. So we were just getting to a stage where it was just too much. We emailed or called everybody every week, but it was getting too difficult. So during lockdown, I was searching on the website for some sort of app that we could use to help us communicate with owners, and I stumbled across this Racing Manager, and they'd been going a couple of years but still fairly new, and it's brilliant. So if you own a horse with us, you just click on the app or you go online, all the information about the horse is there, and then we just put updates on there, so videos of them jumping, doing their piece of work, entries, declarations,
They can't
rating.
sit in the stable though.
It's not live, no. But you can. We try and do many updates. So we split it between the head lad, me, another guy, and Josh. We all have separate bits that we do updates on. So I probably do an update for that horse every week. Josh does. So you'll get probably 3 or 4 a week.
Your videos are very good. I've been through all your website and everything I can find, and they're very natural and they come over really well.
Yeah, hopefully. It's just like anything. Everybody loved it for the first year. But then that's quite normal. Having a video of a jockey afterwards is quite normal. So it's trying to always think of new things. We're probably going to have to buy better technology, better cameras to get better videos. And, we were talking the other day whether we could have microphones on the jockeys when they're riding work to sort of
There's always
talk
got to be
through.
something else, hasn't there?
Just to try and keep it fresh, really.
Yeah. Now, you are a trustee of the National Horse Racing College in Doncaster. So you are interested in helping young people into racing, and your staff you do seem to attract a really good crew of young people. Do you think this adds an extra excitement and edge to your training?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was definitely easier when I first started. We had probably a bit more time. As you get bigger and get busier, it definitely gets harder to give people individual attention. But yeah, at the moment we've got 3 young girls and guys who've just started. Like we took videos of them today. We send them the videos. We're always trying. Enjoy being a trustee. Getting people involved and new people and teaching people to ride. And Dan, who's worked for me since I started, couldn't ride when he came to me at 14, and to see him. He used to come hunting with me. He could ride in a point to point, no problem. And to see him go from not being able to ride to do that, even to be able to saddle one up at the races and have sole charge, gives me a lot of pleasure. A lot of pleasure, yeah.
So the jockeys you choose as well, you do seem to have a good range of jockeys riding for you. You seem to give lots of people an opportunity in that department as well.
Yeah, ideally you just want sort of actually at the races probably as few as possible because you want the continuity, but it just doesn't always work like that. A lot of the time we're in 2 different meetings, or one's right down south, one's up north, so we've probably got 4 or 5 jockeys that we use regularly, and sort of we try and use Toby Wynn, who's just started. If one's got a lot of weight, he'll claim off one. He tends to ride the more experienced horses at the moment. And then Henry Brook and Craig Nicol to ride the rest if possible.
So you're constantly keeping an eye out to buy good horses. Where do you normally find them?
Yeah, so I try, and Mick Easterby was always one for this, not to buy all your horses from the same place. So it's sort of an equal split really between unraced, unbroken horses that we tend to buy in May. Probably buy sort of 4 or 5 of those, break them in over the summer. That's sort of more for an old-fashioned owner, somebody who doesn't mind taking a bit more time. And then we buy Irish and English pointer-pointers, quite a lot from France, sort of horses.
What is it about the French horses? These do seem to be popular, don't they, the French-bred horses?
Yeah, they're precocious, and they tend to do everything a bit earlier. So for our sister to bring them over, you could have a 3-year-old bring them over to here that's actually done a lot more than what our horse would have done. They break them in as yearlings and train them as 2-year-olds. So once they actually run as 3-year-olds, they're very experienced.
So they're more advanced than our system.
So Dad buys foals out there. He buys 6 to 8 foals a year, and then he tries to sell the sort of the top ones. He'll run them in hurdle races, and the top ones he'll hopefully sell, and then the sort of the middle bracket will come to us, and we'll syndicate them. So it's been a very good system. It's worked really well.
They have good incentives for breeding too.
Good incentives, yeah, and it's good prize money. So the Dad enjoys it. He has his days out. The prize money pays for their training fees, and selling the horses sort of buys the foals for next year. So it sort of covers its face. And majority of our top horses, Herbier, Hom, Public.
So Herbier came through
Herbier
that.
come from there, yeah. Hom Public, who's another very good horse of ours.
Herbier, should have guessed that with the name.
Yeah.
Slightly French. So you're very pleased with him last week?
I was pleased with him, yeah. So obviously he finished 9th. You sort of always dream that they're going to run a lot better than probably they're capable of and getting the placings. But realistically, I think the way the race was run, the ground conditions, I think he ran a great race, and he's going to go back to Cheltenham in April over a slightly shorter distance, and I think that will suit him better.
Well, it must have been very exciting.
Yeah,
so that's a family horse, Herbier.
That's a family horse. So Dad kept a share in him, and then we've actually syndicated him out to sort of family and friends.
It's Aintree just around the corner, being local and a big part of family life. How do the nerves compare, sort of riding as opposed to training?
I think a lot more nervous training. Riding, you've just got a job to do. You go out and do it and enjoy it, and you get off and it's run badly, you just walk away. Whereas training, you've obviously still got to deal with the owners beforehand, still organising all of that during the race, after the race, and you see the horse every day. So any little niggle or stuff, you've always got in the back of the mind, is that going to affect it? Or so yeah, I get pretty nervous every race, really. Doesn't matter what level.
I imagine you don't look nervous.
No,
I hope not.
No, but not necessarily nervous. I mean, you just want things to go right, and
But
especially
horses,
so Aintree. We've saved quite a lot of horses. It tends to be, it's ultra competitive at Aintree, but it tends to be slightly less competitive than Cheltenham. Not as many Irish horses come over, so we've sort of tried to sort of earmark our better horses at Aintree. And if one ran well or one, you just think that's in the shop window, that's a massive end of the season. You just pray that that could really sell the business.
We all know horses are great levellers, and the highs are equal. You've got to make the most of the highs, haven't you, to cope with the not so good times. Do you have any memories of things where things have gone, like you got the horse to the lorry and they won't go in, or how do you sort of deal with these everyday things about
better.
horses?
I think when we were point-to-pointing, it was, you only could race at the weekend, so if the lorry broke down or something, it was always a nightmare. At least with under rules, there's always more options. But I think, in that sense, I'm quite relaxed. We've had horse, accidents on the road, and horse haven't been able to get there, or, occasionally they pull a shoe off and stand on it or something, and you get to the other end, and you've got 10 owners. The other day we had 10 owners at Carlisle, and the horse had pricked its foot, and you can't run. And but 9 times out of 10, everybody's understanding. But it's it's always frustrating. That's what happens
with horses, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have any hot tips for runners next week at Aintree?
So we've got, I think we're going to have 4 runners. We've got a horse called Hon Public, which is another French horse. I think he'll run very well. He wasn't quite right middle of the season, but he really showed his old form, winning last time. And then we've got 2 in the Fox Hunters. Toby Wynn's going to ride 1. We're not sure which yet. And then we've got somebody else riding another one. Derby Vant and Jeski, both French horses. Both won last time. And sort of both. One's rated 127, Derby Vant. Jeski was rated about 130. And around, it's a level weights race, but if you're rated about 130, you normally go pretty well in it. So I think those 2.
So they'll be on the Thursday.
They're on the Thursday, in the Fox Hunters.
Day.
And then we've got Hon Public on Friday, and Herbier, if he doesn't go to Cheltenham, he might go to Aintree as well.
So the yard will be buzzing next week.
Yeah, definitely.
Exciting. So after a busy day, when you come in, you have 3 very young boys, Walter, Monty and Sydney. What happens next? Yeah,
so that's the busiest in their lives. Jess's life, that's the busiest part of the day. Tea time, bath time, bedtime. So it's pretty full on, but it's good. I actually, it's one of the nicest things if you've had a good day, bad day, whatever day. Walter, Monty and Sydney don't know about it, and
Jess. Do they ever come racing?
Not yet, but they will do. But Jess is great as well. She doesn't, she's involved, but she doesn't get, too involved. So she, you just crack on and get on with it.
What about the mornings? Are they all up?
Yeah, so they get up pretty early. Monty's only 8 weeks old, so he's normally up sort of 6. I start 5:30, try not to wake him up. And then, he's normally up. But then I pop in and out. So they go to school at preschool, 7:45. So I go and help Jess load them up. So that's really nice, working on the yard.
Sounds like they're loading the lorry.
It is like loading the lorry, yeah. But yeah, that's the nicest thing is, generally I don't go racing till about 10. So at least I can see them in the morning, even if I'm going to be back late.
So it is you don't really get a breather, do you? All year, it's an all year round job.
All year round, yeah.
So heading off for a holiday, how do you fit that in?
Yeah, and that's the great thing about Josh. As long as we're not, occasionally go on holiday together maybe, but as long as one of us is there, it's fine. And I think you just have to be upfront and honest with owners, and which we are, and you just tell them you're away, and it works fine really. Sundays are my sort of day with the family. I try and block them out, and then we try and go away skiing in the winter and go for a hot holiday in the summer. But we're probably racing 4 or 5 days a week, and then the other days you can always find time. And like I say, working at home, it's could be better.
It all
really
fits in.
Yeah.
And finally, do you have a dark horse that our listeners may not know about, something exciting for them to look out for in the future?
Dark horse. I think.
One that you're really excited about, maybe.
Yeah, we've got a horse called Jetta Magic, which I've always really liked, and he hasn't shown a great deal, except he obviously won nicely last time. But I think he could be a pretty special horse. He's been a really slow learner. I think he was pushed quite hard as a young horse in Ireland. He won his race in Ireland when our owner bought him. I think then he came over here and he actually mentally wasn't ready for it, and I always really liked him. He's lovely to sit on and to ride, but he just hasn't really shown it. But I'm still keeping the faith.
He's lovely to sit on and to ride.
Yeah.
I like horses like that. Right, now we got to the quick fire section. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Kate, do you want to start?
Favourite racetrack?
Bangor.
Oh, well done. Which sports person do you look up to?
Not really. I don't know if this is sports person, but Willie Mullins, obviously. A bit boring to say Willie Mullins, but he just seems to get the mix really right. He's not he's obviously very dedicated to his job, but he also has a good time. His staff, I went to the gallops on Tuesday morning, his staff is couldn't be nicer. I think that always you can tell that he's obviously very good with his staff, which I just think is very important. Yeah.
If you were representing your country at the Olympics, what sport would you choose?
Probably Winter Olympics skiing. It's probably my...
Not curling.
Not curling. I tried that and slipped over.
Were you good? I wanted to ask it earlier on, actually. Were you good at sport at school?
No, I was terrible.
Were you in the teams?
Terrible. I was a late developer.
Don't believe you. What's your guilty pleasure?
Eating. I'm very, very greedy.
Like good food.
So apart from training, what would be your dream job?
I always think this, and I think I'll pack up training and go and do something else. But I always thought I'd probably go to Africa and run a riding safari. I quite like organising stuff, and I'd love to live in the middle of nowhere.
And do those wild safaris like you went on when you were younger.
You'd be good with all those animals, I'm sure. Which is the greater thrill, to train the winner or ride the winner?
Train, definitely. Just the amount of effort that goes into it when it comes off, it's a very good feeling.
And to finish, do you have a joke or a motto for us?
I think I'm more a motto man, maybe. Mickey Easterby always said to me, he said, if you're ever going to run your own business, he says, you can't do everything yourself, get good people around you. And that's always what I try and do, is to delegate and get good people around me. I think that was a very, very sensible thing to say.
I think you're very good at that, Ollie.
Thank you, Oliver, for an insight into what it takes to be a trainer. It is an amazing skill set, and I'm sure we have only scratched the surface.
Oliver and the team have created an environment for the horses to thrive in, and the tally of winners is only one measure of his success. There are many others as you listen to the way of life that has been created for his family, workforce and owners.
Look out for the Greenall Guerriero runners at Aintree on Thursday. Dieu Vivant and Jeskill in the Fox Hunter, one of which may be ridden by Toby Wynne, and on the Friday, possibly Herbier and Homme Public. From the Horsebox, we'll be cheering them on.
As usual, we welcome any feedback or tips on our email fromthehorsebox@gmail.com. And join us again on May the 1st, when it could be you in the driving seat.